Welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist virtual worship service, where we gather each week beyond our four walls to be together in these times. Music director Bennett Britt will open with the Prelude, Every Time I Feel the Spirit.
Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. On the mountain, like God's smoke, over the mountain, fire and smoke. All around me looks so shine, as my God if all was mine. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. When the Jordan comes right cold, chills the body from the soul. Ain't but one train from the strike runs to heaven and right back. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray.
At Community Church Unitarian Universalist, we are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. We believe it is not necessary to think alike in order to love alike. I am Reverend Jacqueline Luck, a member of this congregation. The sermon this morning will be shared by congregation member Alicia Cook and is titled Self-Care and Its Discontents, How to Love and to Be Loved When the World is Just Way Too Much. She wrote me, at the Louisiana Department of Health by day and doing climate justice by night, Alicia works all the time, and some would say way too much. And then sometimes she doesn't work at all and stares at the wall for days because she is tired. This has provided her with time to do some thinking about why she is tired and to try to do something about it. That is the focus of her message, and I'm sure we will all benefit from it. A celebratory announcement this morning. August Rourke Van Young has arrived, and all are healthy and happy. If you'd like to help our minister and her family, there is an announcement in the membership email and community matters about a meal train that is being organized from the Caring Ministry. Our introit this morning is Alleluia, Son the Stars by Patrick L. Rickey. It is Community Church's custom to light a chalice, invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. As we sing, "We Light this Flame," words by member Bert Brunson.
We light this flame to offer the light of truth and knowledge and the warmth of love and community and the fire of hope and truth.
Religious Director Cynthia Ramirez has words for all ages.
Good morning, everyone. I have a story here. It's a retelling of a Sufi wisdom tale. It's called The Fox and the Lion. Once there was a woman who prayed to understand what path she should take in life. One night, after praying, she dreamed of walking in the woods. The next day, she journeyed to the woods, searching for the answer to her prayers. It was quiet and peaceful. Then she saw a patch of red fur. It was an injured fox lying in the shade of a large tree. Before she could reach the fox, she heard the nearby bushes rustle and out came a lion with a fish in its mouth. Frightened, the woman hid herself and watched as the lion laid the fish near the fox, turned around, and left the way it came. As she watched the weakened fox eat the fish, she said to herself, "There is my answer. The great provider who takes care of the fox will also take care of me. I do not have to do anything. I will be taken care of if I just have faith." The woman went home, happy to have her answer, and indeed, she did not do anything. She did not go to work. She did not feed herself. She did not even bathe. She became hungry sitting in her house, so she went down to the town to see if she would be provided for there. Yet no provisions came. People avoided her. She grew weak from hunger. She fell into a restless sleep and dreamed that she was back in the woods. "Oh, great provider," she implored in her dream, "you took care of the little fox, but will you not provide for me?" The great provider replied, "You are mistaken. I don't want you to be the fox. I want you to be the lion." The end. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Cynthia. It's our tradition within our worship service to recognize joys and sorrows. In this virtual service, I invite you to write your messages in the chat box during the hymn, and they will be read after the music. The hymn this morning, "Though Gathered Here to Celebrate."
We'll gather here to celebrate my spirit's burning low. Instead of serving, while I wait, a breath of worship's late. Breathe gladly embers. There have been losses on the way, a parent, partner, friend. At times I need to only words. Self-pity must not have its way. I'll live my life from day to day, and now the healing starts.
Kathy writes, it's a great joy that CCUU has received funds from the Small Business Association's Payroll Protection Program to help us pay our payroll for 2.5 months. Cynthia Ramirez, I want to welcome little August as a new member into the religious education community. From Gay, I'm happy to join you all for the first time via Zoom. Great to see some familiar faces. Dion, only joys today. Thankful for the health and well-being of my CCUU community, the friendships I enjoy as a result of finding CCUU, and a great joy that my boy, Frankie, currently has 4 healthy feet. That dog has been limping around for one reason or another for a year. We are so, from Jim O'Neill, we are so grateful for the new addition to Adrian and Darcy's family. A new baby's kind of an addiction too. From Howard, words matter. We all hear about social distancing, but that is not what we need. We need physical distancing and social closeness. My students celebrated via Zoom and demonstrated social closeness. I will miss them. From Al Malone, the North Shore congregation paid off their note. Wow. From Eloise Nakunde, words of encouragement. If we don't get it at first, never, never give up. We will get it sooner or later by the grace of God. Keep working, stay on the journey, one day at a time. We hold these joys and have I made a mistake here? We hold these joys in our hearts at this moment, and those that have remained unspoken. I think I missed the hymn. Those gathered here to celebrate, did we? Time for our offering, I guess. Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You will see in the chat box many ways that you can make a donation to our congregation. As we just heard, we've gotten a small business loan for payroll, and that's very important. But I am very aware that when we do not meet in person, that our contributions usually slack off until people are in person again. So if you can make a special effort to support your congregation at this time, it would be a lovely thing to do and greatly appreciated. The offertory is O Gut, du frommer Gut, our God to whom we turn. It's harmonized by J.S. Bach. Thank you, Bennett.
Thank you.
Alicia Cook will now share with us her message of sustainability with her readings and sermon.
Unmute myself. That's it, right? I was muted.
Reading today comes from the 58th chapter of Isaiah in the Hebrew Bible. Is this not the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? It is not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see them naked to cover them and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. And our second reading today comes from Pema Chodron, the American Buddhist nun. And in this reading, she refers to the concept of bodhicitta, which can be translated as the spirit of the noble or awakened heart within us. Spiritual awakening is frequently described as a journey to the top of a mountain. We leave our attachments and our worldliness behind and slowly make our way to the top. At the peak, we have transcended all pain. The only problem with this metaphor is that we leave all the others behind. Our drunken brother, our schizophrenic sister, our tormented animals and friends. Their suffering continues, unrelieved by our personal escape. In the process of discovering bodhicitta, the journey goes down, not up. It's as if the mountain pointed toward the center of the earth instead of reaching into the sky. Instead of transcending the suffering of all creatures, we move toward the turbulence and doubt. We jump into it, we slide into it, we tiptoe into it, we move toward it however we can. We explore the reality and unpredictability of insecurity and pain, and we try not to push it away. If it takes years, if it takes lifetimes, we let it be as it is. At our own pace, without speed or aggression, we move down and down and down. With us move millions of others, our companions in awakening from fear. At the bottom, we discover water, the healing water of bodhicitta. Right down there in the thick of things, we discover the love that will not die. A glass of red wine, poured from the finest box on the shelf in Rouse's. You know its quality because you only get 3 liters instead of 5 for your $18.99, and the packaging looks like it might be made of recycled material for that cool hipster vibe. This amusing red wine pairs nicely with an assortment of Netflix binge-watching material. I am partial to British comedies, also American comedies. Essentially, how much I enjoy a show is in inverse proportion to how much of my brain it requires me to engage. For years, this was my self-care, an automatic and comfortable stress response with the express purpose of turning off my brain when I've had a tough day. In time, I grew older and wiser and graduated to adding a few healthier coping techniques. Escape to the solitude of our wild bayous as often as possible. Unwinding from the day's stress with the long run, or letting go of the notion that my sick leave shouldn't technically be used for days that I just had it with the world. We all love to talk about self-care. We love comparing favorite meditation apps and TV shows to screen, and I think we generally do a good job of recognizing that if we need self-care, others do too. However, if we're being honest, we would really prefer if others took their me time after they answered our urgent email, wouldn't we? It does seem that at work and in social justice movements and perhaps at church, we celebrate the tireless warriors. We even call them tireless warriors as a term of praise. The ones who receive accolades are the ones who are always there for their people, always showing up when asked, responding to the people who need responses and challenging the people who need challenging and nurturing the people who need nurturing. In truth, I think we all know that we ask too much of everyone all the time, and yet we just can't seem to stop. I'm going to tell you a secret that we've all been keeping from each other. No one, neither mortal nor deity, has ever promised us enough time and energy to do everything that must be done in this world. And even though we may have a crystal clear vision of what it takes to accomplish a task and a crystal clear knowledge of what we need to function as a sane human being in this world, I can almost guarantee you that when you place those two ideas in the same space, they will jostle for position and crowd each other, and in the end, something has got to give. When I consider the covenant of right relations that informs how we act both within our congregations and beyond these four walls, pursuing the work of justice building that is so central to our lives as Unitarian Universalists, these questions stand out. How do we take care of ourselves without letting down those who depend on us? And how do we leave space for others to do the same without getting burnt out ourselves? When we consider the work we do, be that dismantling white supremacy, ensuring equitable access to clean air and water, or even just raising a healthy and happy child during a pandemic, does our burnout have to be the sacrifice that is made in order to get the work done? For me, these questions were brought into sharp relief in 2017. At that time, many of us from across Louisiana were engaged in the fight of our lives. The black snake was slithering through North Dakota, the Dakota Access Pipeline, a formidable and well-moneyed beast whose lackeys unleashed water cannons and rubber bullets on indigenous people peacefully defending their sovereign land. But even as the nation's attention was focused on Standing Rock, the black snake was turning south. The tail end of the Dakota Access would be built to transport crude oil from Lake Charles to the export terminals of St. James, Louisiana. It was called the Bayou Bridge Pipeline. But what a beautiful opposition coalition we had. Environmentalists and our lawyers, of course, but also indigenous activists and descendants of the slaves of the riverfront plantations who were fighting for the safety of their ancestral communities. Craw fishermen who depended on clean air and water for their livelihood. And others from all across the country coming to join the fight for their own very personal reasons. We prayed together. We took care of each other. We were large enough that we each could step away if it got to be too much. Our talents were diverse enough that we didn't need to be everywhere at once. Some resisted in the courtrooms, others on social media, some in classrooms and community meetings. And when the time came for construction to begin, some resisted quite literally in the swamps of the Atchafalaya Basin, stopping or delaying construction with their presence, with their bodies. As the permits were all approved, as the construction began in earnest, as the arrests began, to take care of each other became harder. During a staff meeting at my day job, in my downtown office, the flicker of a notification from the coalition's encrypted text thread would light up my phone with a message from our friends in the swamps. We are desperate. We are under attack. If you ever cared about this fight at all, now is the moment to prove it. Now is the only moment. I would put my phone aside with my heart pounding and go back to my meeting. By the summer of 2018, the message from the front line was clear. Whoever does not forsake their friends, their job, their comfortable life in New Orleans to take up the cause is part of the problem. Not with us, against us. I now know what it's like to hear trauma speaking, rendering your friends almost unrecognizable. Leaving space for that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Self-care could not save me now, not with my thoughts winging away to the swamps every 5 minutes, and it sure as hell would do nothing to save my friends. Never had what I had to do to take care of myself and what I had to do to take care of my community been in such stark opposition to each other. From the comfortable, air-conditioned office of my salaried job in the city, I would regularly break down in despair. And then, like an electric shock response, I would register my own despair with disgust. What gave me the right to be in despair when compared with those contending with alligators and mosquitoes and the brutality of security forces? My life was so easy. I hope that just now, in hearing me tell it that way, you realize that I had fallen into a mental trap. Of course, some people suffer more than others, but it in no way follows that any of us are not entitled to our pain just because others feel greater pain. We could choose to push our pain away because others have it worse, which, let me be clear, accomplishes absolutely nothing good. Or we could contend with our suffering and meet it as the natural companion to someone else's. I suffer not in spite of your more deserved suffering, I suffer because you suffer. From here, let the logic flow. When we compartmentalize our rituals of self-care and remove them from the context of the work that we do, we are falling well short of the full story. If your suffering causes me pain, I will not solve my pain without addressing your suffering. If our suffering is linked, so too must be our healing. We absolutely need those moments when we give ourselves permission to step away from the fight. But also, it is time to recognize the limits of self-care in a world where trauma is a pervasive external influence. There is no way to be a shining, whole person when that so-called wholeness is juxtaposed against the background of social brokenness. It is not possible. Even the most beautiful flower will wilt in bad soil. In the 1970s, a group of Aboriginal activist groups from Queensland, Australia, coined an idea that has been key to the mission of countless social justice movements that followed. If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up in mine, then let us work together. And our liberation will not be won by bubble baths alone. Well, now what? There is another way forward. Between the time that we take for ourselves and the time that we give to the work, there's a gentle place where they meet in the middle, and that is the expansive work of community care. After 50 Muslim worshippers were killed in a terrorist attack on a New Zealand mosque in 2019, a Muslim community organizer named Nikita Valerio typed out a simple Facebook status that read, "Shouting self-care at people who need community care is actually how we fail people." Reflecting later on that concise message that went viral, she added, "Self-care is about the individual caring for their own basic physical needs, whereas community care is focused on the collective, taking care of people together for everything from basic physical needs to psychological and even spiritual ones. Community care is a recognition of the undeniable cooperative and social nature of human beings and involves a commitment to reduce harm simply through being together. Ultimately, community care is a commitment to contributing in a way that leverages one's relative privilege while balancing one's needs. It's trusting that your community will have you when you need support and knowing you can be trusted to provide the same." The health of the self, the pursuit of the work, and in between, the nurturing of community. I hated that pipeline, not just for the oil. I hated it because a well-moneyed, well-resourced, and violent owner had pulled out all the stops to bring good people to their breaking point. It worked the way power has always, always worked. Enough time and energy to do the work was never promised to us, and the ones in power know this. We have to figure out other ways to win. Here's what winning can look like. It can look like choosing to meet someone's trauma and angry words with love and letting go of the often self-serving need for immediate resolution, leaving space for the ambiguity of hurt feelings and pain if it is not yet time for resolution. It can look like changing your agenda or canceling the strategy meeting altogether because people feel the need for a day of prayer instead. It can look like taking a mental health day, but popping out of the house just for a bit because a friend needs a ride to a therapy appointment and you are able to provide it. It can look like being too tired to engage in yet another issue that desperately needs our attention, but not too tired to look for someone who's helping, whose day you could make by a small note of appreciation or donation to the cause. It can look like being overwhelmed by anxiety in an uncertain time, but never too overwhelmed to offer an encouraging word to someone who clearly needs one. When injustice is an existential threat to a community, working for justice in any small way is an act of community care. And when that community is ours, that community care is self-care. We didn't stop to buy a bridge pipeline. Oil started flowing in April of 2019, quietly. Our friends had left the swamps. We had moved on, giving space to the trauma, slowly working to process and heal relationships, and still are. The Poor People's Campaign came to Louisiana inspired by the pipeline fight, and there was a tent revival to greet them. So many old faces together in one place. I hadn't realized until that moment just how many people we had fellowshipped with since our fight began. The details of our planning, our strategizing, the endless conference calls retreated into the background, and we were left with just one primary thing: who we had been for each other. Oil may be flowing, but at the same time, in this church hall in Reserve, Louisiana, there are spirituals and new and old friends greeting each other with hugs. And here's Reverend Barber walking in to preach, and there's crawfish. When we go home, we will be exhausted, but not drained. Oil may be flowing, the battle lost, but in this warm and glowing place, at this time, how can we possibly keep from singing?
Oh my, thank you so much, Alicia. It was lovely. Our sermon response is "Go Lift It Up," Mortimer B. Barron. We're very glad you joined us in this time of worship and worth giving. Stay connected, because in 10 minutes, a virtual coffee hour will begin, led by our friend, Dion. Alicia has a benediction for us.
Our benediction today comes from A. Powell Davies. Here we are, all of us, all upon this planet, bound together in a common destiny, living our lives between the briefness of the daylight and the dark, kindred in this, each lighted by the same precarious, flickering flame of life. How does it happen that we are not kindred in all things else? How strange and foolish are these walls of separation that divide us?